So, here we are again. Welcome back to City Skylines. After only a few months, I'm back. At first, it seemed like a while, but then I remembered that some episodes of Edbrook had about the same amount of time in between them, so, yeah, a while. This time, however, there have been significant changes. I'm pretty sure most of you realized that Edbrook was really going nowhere. As much as I tried, it became less and less fun to make an episode, and I'm not even telling you the hassle it was to get any work done in between them. Eventually, it had to come to an end, because at this point it would take me up to 40 minutes to load the game, and an additional 10 minutes after the game loaded for it to render. Not only that, then the first autosave since loading, there would be like a 10-minute wait while my laptop painfully struggled to function. And the game would not even always load. Sometimes it took me 3 tries to get the game working, and I'd still have errors in the city, which became more and more recurring. So, I hear you thinking to yourself, what are these changes? Well, if you've read the comments I've left, you probably have some idea. I've made upgrades to my hardware, and hopefully the way I play as well. I've purchased a legitimate desktop, which you can find the specs of in the About tab, a new monitor, and some other stuff. I think that you guys will actually really like what's in store now. Basically, I've decided to start fresh. I've seen the response to different videos, and I'm kind of pleased to announce a new format. Instead of just watching a sped up video of me building a city, we'll kind of build a city in chunks, with each video covering a different aspect of making a city. A sort of like a tutorial timeline, if you will. A collection of videos that can be watched as a series or separately as just guides or tips. So, to kick this off, this episode will be covering road networks and layouts. Roads are the skeleton of every city. They are the very structure in which the city grows on, so it is only fair to build it well. Roads can vary. For example, North American cities tend to have square, grid-like infrastructures versus the polygonal and more organic-looking roads of many European countries. The way roads are built also depends on where in the city they are. Downtowns or main parts of the city are usually more dense than the spaced-out roads of the suburbs. So, let's begin. Alright, so I've created a new save game in City Skylines on my own map that I've made. And the reason why I chose my own map is because it is so much easier to build a city when you have a map that suits your needs. When you make your own map, you know where you want what to go in your city, and in general, it just makes your life so much easier. So to start us off, I've placed a few main roads branching off of the highway, just to give us some sort of a skeleton to work with. So right near the highway, I chose 6-lane roads because that's where the majority of the traffic is coming through, and off of those roads, you can put smaller roads. In my case, 4-lane roads. I chose ones with grass and trees because I want my city to be green. So if that's something that you want to go for, try going with roads that have more life in them. Speaking of the highway, what I usually do at highway entrances is I create a little like a roundabout. And because then if cars come through, they can choose where they want to go from there, instead of being forced onto one road and then having to all kind of cram into there and then branch out from there. It really does clear up your traffic. Now what I'm actually doing here is I'm creating a grid, and the reason why I'm actually making a grid is because I want my city to be North American. And since this is the downtown area, I like it to be more dense, and grids are typically found in denser areas of North America. So that's my reasoning. There's not really much decision put into that other than what I've just said. The next thing that I'm going for right away, because I'm still putting down my main roads, is planning my transit systems in my city. Something that I'd always recommend is for you guys to use trams. Trams are just a very convenient way for transport because they use the same structure as roads, but they provide a faster and kind of more reliable form of transport for your citizens to use, and it also does cut down on cars, which is always something that you want to do. You don't want too many cars in your streets. Now, something really great with this new update is that we now have the ability to create custom roads, and with this new ability, we're getting a variety of amazing roads in the workshop, some of which are just honestly so useful, like the one that I just placed, the 6-lane road with tram. It's the same size as an 8-lane road, but it has tram down the center, and it's extremely convenient. If you guys want to place trams in your city and you want them to have on your main roads, this is definitely the road you should get. Now, all I'm doing here is basically running my tram line through this roundabout. The reason I'm doing this, I don't want to put it and do anything crazy with the tram. I don't want it to go under the roundabout. I don't want it to go above. And if it's just cutting through, it won't be stopping traffic too much, because using a Traffic Manager President Edition, I can just remove traffic lights and let my tram go straight through. Alright, so now that I've done that, we can go ahead and extend our main roads. Because now I have a connection to my other highway entrance, and we can kind of go from there. I always try to make straight, like really nice curves, which is what you saw me doing there a second ago. It's just a really nice way to make your city look nicer and to handle traffic better, because the sharper your curves, the slower traffic will become around them. You can see right now I'm still putting down some tram roads, because although I don't want my tram to be everywhere, I do still want a nice tram connection going down through main parts of my city, which is where you see me putting it. You see me putting it in the center of these little areas that I've made so far. Alright, so do experiment with different roads. There are so many road options now that you don't want the same road everywhere. What I did is I looked at a whole bunch of different tram ones and chose them not only by how they look, but by their functionality as well. I like this tram road. It's like it's a 4-lane road, but with a tram going down the center, and it has these nice platforms on the side. It's really nice. The road looks great, but it also performs really well, because this way citizens can walk along the side of the road. Alright, so the next thing that's going to go on here is I'm going to expand the grid that I've already made. It honestly really simple. I try to keep the grid as uniform as possible. You really don't want any irregular grid shapes or a grid that's too tight. Not only will it not help with traffic, but it just looks really ugly. In City Skylines, what we really try to do is keep the cities looking nice. And just as a tip, just keep this in your mind going forward. Keep your grids uniform. So as you can see here, I've placed down my train station asset, and this area in general is just really blank. You can see that I haven't really placed down any roads yet, and the reason why is because this is the really main downtown part of my city, and you'll see why I actually haven't placed any roads yet. But the main reason is that I want to have my roads built around what I build here, basically, if that makes any sense. Yeah, so you can see here I'm placing my track. I make 2 pieces of track. They're both straight, nothing curved. I just create the desired angle I want and make sure it looks nice. And then from there, I measure out the distances from where the 2 tracks intersect. I delete those mid segments, and I create a really nice curved track. And although we could create an entire episode dedicated to this, I'd rather just speed it up. It's a very straightforward process. Maybe we'll make a video about how I do all of this some other time. So yeah, that's what I was talking about. I create the curves, and that's pretty much it. So one thing we definitely don't want is for all our tracks to intersect this main road that we have right here, branching right off of the highway. The game isn't designed to handle this many intersections. You'll just get a really glitched out road and horrible traffic, because nothing will be able to get through. There will constantly be trains coming through. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an underpass for this road. I measure out 20 units from where the road connects to the train track, because 20 units is a really nice amount for a smooth curve. Smooth slope. I usually create my slope 9 meters deep. 12 meters is a bit too much, and if you've ever seen something that's 12 meters high, such as an overpass, you'll know that it's extremely tall, and it's in fact too tall. So there you go. I deleted my mid segments of track, and I created the underpass. All I'm going to do now is extend the track to the very edge of this road, because then what we can do is we can use fine road tools to create elevated sections of track over this road that we've just created, which you'll see me do in a second here. Speaking of which, fine road tools, if you don't have it, it's an essential. You must get it. It provides you with so many options for your roads and tracks. You can force tunnels, bridges. Something that I really find useful is straight slope. Instead of having this bumpy, just kind of vanilla slope, you get a really nice, as per the name, smooth slope. The next thing we're going to do here is use these assets in the workshop for overpass support, and I'm placing them using find it, which is how I find it, and move it, which honestly, if you're new to City Skylines, the first mod you should get. Move it is such an essential, it's a game changer. If you haven't used it before, basically it lets you move around props, rotate them. If you have prop snapping, it lets you move them up and down, because in vanilla and without the game having any mods, you can't do that. It's honestly, just listen to me, it's a must have. All I'm doing here then, I've made them on side with these overpass supports, and I'm just pasting them over to the other side. You could see me here using move it, actually, just like I just said. Just making it as precise as possible to have it like nicely placed in the middle of these tracks, so both overpass support walls are equivalent. You don't have to do that, it's just my OCD probably kicking in, trying to make it as perfect as possible. Even in real life, I'm pretty sure overpass walls aren't this precise. Yeah, the next thing I'm going to do is I extend my grid a bit just to prepare for the train station. So in case you're wondering, the reason why I'm planning my roads at a time for trains is because rail transport is a form of major transport. It's used by a lot of citizens, and the way you place your stations, the way you plan out this network, really determines how much is used, how it's used, and how well it performs. Not only that, but personally, I really like trains, and I think it's a great way to move your citizens around. So I tend to plan it carefully, and if you're someone that would like to use trains, you should really too. Just a tip, as you can see what I've done, try to make your curves as large and as smooth as possible. This makes it so that your trains don't have to slow down as much. It's honestly the same with cars, but if you're going to be using trains, and which is a form of rapid transport, because trains move fast, way faster than cars, you really want the network to be as fast and as efficient as possible. As well, try not to have too many crossings. It'll really impact your traffic and how fast your trains are, because if a crossing doesn't go down in time, your train will have to slow down. A great way to avoid this is to create tunnels, especially with main roads, which is what I'm doing right now. I'm creating an underpass, except as a tunnel, not as a physical underpass as you saw me do. It's a really nice way. It doesn't affect the trains or the traffic, and it's something that I'd really recommend. So now we're back to the downtown area, and like I said earlier, the reason why I didn't place any roads here is because I want to place roads based off of where I place the buildings, because if you just continue with the same grid structure that we made earlier, you will not always be able to place your buildings the way you want to. It'll look really weird, they'll be spaced out irregularly, and not all of them will even fit. So what I try and do is first find out where I want to place my tallest building, and then I kind of work my way from there, which is what you see me doing right now. In my case, I chose the Aeon Center, and then I build my road network off of that. However, just because you're building it based off of the buildings and not just the roads doesn't mean you shouldn't try and keep a grid structure if that's what you're going for. It's still downtown, it's still a dense area, and you should still try and keep it grid-like, which is what I'm doing. I place down the buildings where I want them to be. I try and make the roads as nice as possible, but while still keeping a kind of square structure, because I don't want it to look too irregular. I just want the area to stand out a bit since it is the downtown. Also, we're not into buildings yet, but since we are doing the downtown, try and place more office buildings than commercial in the downtown, because that's usually what downtowns are for. It's where offices are, where businesses are. Commercial buildings, you can put them while you're planning them. I'm not discouraging it, honestly. If that's something that you want to do, go ahead. But just keep in mind that offices should probably be going first, because in a real city, offices take up the most space. Not always. Sometimes there are more stores, but in my cities, I like to put offices first. And so by now I've placed my main buildings, and I have my road structure planned out, and I'm just filling in the spaces with buildings that can pretty much fit anywhere. And yeah, that's it. That's the basics. If you guys like this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below to let me know what you think. Alright, bye!